as always, if you've enjoyed this video, please remember to like it, share it, and subscribe to The Art of Photography so you'll always be up to date on all the latest and greatest videos we do here. Until the next video, I'll see you guys then. Later. Okay, this is the ultimate inception. I'm doing a double header today. We're doing two videos because tonight is the supermoon, so I'm going to take you guys along and show you what I'm going to do for my photo shoot. Now, I've actually already started to do a lot of this, but I want to walk you through my process here. So I've been thinking for a few days of what my location's going to be for my moonshot tonight. And to do this, I've used an app called Skyview, which is free. It's on the iPhone. And let me show you what I did to determine where the moon is going to be. So when you bring up this app here, what it's going to do is it's going to do a little overlay onto your camera here so you can see where things are. When I move it around, you can see there's the moon, and that's where it is right now. You can also change the date, so I actually changed this to November 14th when I was working on it yesterday, so I could see exactly where the moon was going to be on that particular day. So that's a nice thing that you can do. So it gives you the trajectory here when you select the moon. So you can see that if I bring it up, there's the horizon. So we're looking at between 6:15 and 6:45-ish is probably going to be my best time, maybe 7. So that's what we're looking at here. So I'm going to go take this to a map. I can also see that that is exactly due east right there. So we're a little bit north of east there. And so that's where the moon is going to be. Now it's time to go pack some cameras. In terms of equipment, I'm actually going to travel fairly lightweight tonight, and there are a couple reasons why. Mainly because I already know in my head what kind of shot I want to get, and in thinking this through, I don't want to do one of those NASA-esque, just big bold shots of a full moon. And a couple reasons why. One, I've done stuff like that before, and two, it's a supermoon, so I want to give it a sense of scale. And so in terms of options, using water or an urban landscape or buildings or something like that to show that sense of scale is something that I want to do. Now, there is still a little bit of room for error on here, because I'm not real sure exactly where the moon's going to rise in juxtaposition, but I've done a lot of location scouting. In fact, let me show you a few things real quick. So we are in Google Maps right now, which I've been using this week to plot my location for shooting here. And this is the city of Fort Worth, Texas, in which I reside. And I've only been here a year, so I'm not really familiar with all the cool views that are available. There are three forks of the Trinity, so if I want to involve water, there's an option. There's a lake. There's a lot of cool stuff. One of my first options, and this is something that I've been over a few times now, and I really want to do a shot from here, but there's a street that runs a bridge over these train tracks over here, and it's got a really cool view of downtown, so you can see kind of through the fence there. The problem actually is this fence and getting a camera lens through the fence. I've actually been up here. The other thing is it is a busy street, and there is a sidewalk, but I'm not really sure how safe it is or how easy it's going to be to document all this. So that's kind of out this time around. And so what I have opted for is, if we go a little bit further north, there is a row where all the museums are over here. Here it is. And the Modern Museum is here, the Kimball is here, and the Amon Carter is here. Now, two things I like about this. This is at the top of a hill, and the Amon Carter has a really nice plaza that you can see kind of on the map here. It's this area here. And I have a reference picture that I took a few months back when I was there. I was there with some friends. This is a horrible picture, but I just wanted to use it for reference because I wanted to do something with this location. It's got a great view of downtown. It's up high on a hill. This up in the front of this deck here on the plaza next to this Henry Moore sculpture is kind of where I'm thinking would be a good shooting area. Sadly, the mesquite tree was, I believe, hit by lightning recently or something, so it's gone now. But I think this is going to be the best bet. This will look west to downtown, which is right here, and the moon will rise over on the east side. So the concern I have, and the reason I like this being on a hill, is I want to shoot the moon while it's low. That's when it's going to visually appear the largest. And I'm not really sure, because the moon technically will be rising a little bit after sunset, how much light will actually still be in the sky. So that is a concern too. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. So let's talk about equipment. As I mentioned, I'm going to keep gear very simple tonight. I'm going to stick with one prime lens and one body. This is the SONY a6300, which is a crop sensor mirrorless, and I like this quite a bit. I'm going to pair that up with this. This is a Canon FD mount. This is a 300mm f4. Now, the reason I'm going with this lens is paired with a crop sensor, this is going to be effectively 450mm or so in focal length. Now, I mentioned earlier I don't want to do kind of a NASA shot, and to do that right, I'd probably need a telescope or at least a 600 millimeter focal length. But I'm not worried about that. I want to get some environment in there too. So I think 450, judging my distance and everything, is probably going to be just about right. Now, I am not super crazy about this lens because mainly it's not a very expensive lens. I paid maybe $100 for this used a couple years ago. And I've done a video on these before, but the problem that you're going to get with these lenses is you're going to have problems with chromatic aberration. So what that means is you're going to have those little color fringes that are green and magenta that you see around high contrast objects. So I'm willing to bet we're going to see these on the sides of the moon at some point. So you can get rid of these in post. You can do it in Lightroom. It is fairly simple, and I'm going to do some post probably on these anyway if the dynamic range is really high. So I'm just going to have to live with that and do it. If you are interested in how to correct chromatic aberrations in less expensive lenses, I did a whole video on that, so I'll link that up above or below depending on where you're watching this. So I'm going to bring these along. I'll probably bring my kit lens for the Sony as well, which is an 18 to 55, just in case as a backup lens. And I'm going to bring this tripod that this is sitting on. It's a Manfrotto B-Free, which I really like. Very easy to travel with and robust enough to do this kind of thing with. The other cool thing about using a mirrorless camera for this is there is no image stabilization in anything that I'm using, right? So the one thing I don't want to have is any kind of camera shake that is going to add blur to the image, because my exposures are probably going to be fairly long when I stop this down. So the reason I decided to go with the Sony in this case, one, I'm familiar with using it, but two, you can actually go into silent mode on the settings here. And what that does is that turns off the mechanical shutter. And so it makes it so there's no movement in the camera at all. So when I pair that up, I'm actually going to use the self timer with this as well. And that gives me about 10 seconds to let the tripod and the camera and everything settle down before it takes the image, and there's no motion at all. So without further ado, let's go ahead and pack these up and get going. So this right here behind me is the Amon Carter Museum, which is one of my favorite places in the world. We're going to go up here because there is this amazing lookout over downtown Fort Worth, and if my calculations are correct, this is where the moon should be. So let's check it out. And we are not the only ones here. Apparently this was a common idea this evening. So you've seen the time-lapse footage, and I want to talk about some of the still images that I shot too. Now, both the time-lapse and the stills were shot both on the same camera with the same setup. I did some cropping in that big shot where the plane flies in front of the moon, but that's essentially what I used, and I really didn't change position too much. The time-lapse was shot actually as video. I did not use stills on it in this particular instance, mainly because I'm using really long exposures on here, which I'm about to talk about, and anything that's going to move the camera is concerning to me, even though I did go into silent mode on that. And so I ended up just shooting video for that, just out of the sake of ease and simplicity. But when I mentioned I wasn't alone up there, I really wasn't. These were the people over to my left here, and everybody's kind of up there, I guess, getting the same shot. I don't know. And then if you turn around and look at the actual museum, which is a little bit higher up on these stairs here, there was a whole bunch of people. And if you zoom in on that, there's a lot of large lenses and tripods up there. Anyway, so it was a lot of fun to do. There were actually some people there that were just kind of enjoying the moment too, which was very cool, and not photographing, which sometimes is nice as well. But I was up there photographing, and the two shots that I ended up with that I like the best are this landscape orientation one, and then I have one that's a portrait orientation too, that was a little bit later when the moon was higher in the sky. Now, I was hoping that there would be some light left in the sky, and there was not. This is the image without any post-processing on it. And there's a couple options that you have. I mean, the problem here is just the sheer dynamic range of the image, that, you know, you've got a dark sky and a pretty dark foreground because that moon is so bright. It's just reflecting sunlight, and I didn't have anything left in the sky as far as light goes once this started coming up. Now, I got a little bit lucky in the position of the moon. It actually started behind the Montgomery Plaza building and then moved kind of diagonally this way, and this just lined up, and I got lucky, as well as I also did not plan on the little bit of the clouds being in the sky that give you a little bit of an accent. But this is the raw version of the image, and you have a couple different options, and I chose to just do one exposure and split the difference a little bit. The other option you could have is you could go in and try to do an HDR image. The reason I didn't do that is because I was using f-stop of around f8. F11, and kind of moving back and forth in there. And so for me, because of the long exposure time and the fact that the moon actually, it appears large because it's near the horizon, it's also moving pretty quick. And so lining up HDR was not something I was interested in kind of, you know, risking on that. So what I ended up doing was really, I shot at the base ISO. So this image was shot at an ISO of 100. The f-stop was f11, and the shutter speed was 1/8 of a second. And I exposed basically for the highlights in the moon because I wanted to retain as much detail in the moon as possible. Now, I shot at the base ISO because that would give me the most flexibility in terms of recovering shadow area. So in Lightroom, which we're in right now, if I can bring my highlights down, and you're going to see that all of a sudden, look at the moon, you get some contrast and some texture. And then I can bring my shadows up, and then you get a little bit of shadow detail. Now, I'm full out at 100 here, so I'll probably have to go into the tone curve as well and kind of play with that a little bit and work with the contrast. But there are ways to recover just a little bit. You know, white balance with the red hue, and that moon really was that red. It was just phenomenal to see, and it looked huge. I mean, you can see some of my B-roll here that I shot just with my handheld camera, and this is kind of more what it was like to be there. I mean, it was just really amazing, and, you know, I kind of envied the people that weren't sitting there worried about f-stops and stuff because they were just enjoying themselves watching all this. But anyway, that's what I opted for on here. And again, I'm on a tripod, so I can use long exposure time, so the shutter speed isn't a big issue for me. I didn't want to go too long because the moon does move a little bit, and to retain that detail is important. But I think this ended up probably about the best I could get. You know, the other idea is to do HDR, and you're going to need shorter shutter speeds for something like that. But this is what I wound up with. So this was a lot of fun, and the next step that I'm going to do is print these out and put them in my journal. Now, for the first photo assignment, it's to take 10 images, and I got a couple last night. But the cool thing about the supermoon is technically the supermoon started last night, but it's not like the moon comes close one night and then just whips away. It'll be a full moon for the next couple nights, so I'm probably going to try and get back over there and do some variations on it and add to it. I won't document those, but those will go in my journal. And so it should be kind of fun, and I want to get into the journals, and I'll show mine with you guys in a video this week. Now, I haven't done a whole lot of process type videos behind the scenes of actually shooting, and if this was useful for you guys, let me know and leave me a comment, and let me know if something you'd like to see more of. And if you enjoyed this video, please remember to like it and share it with your friends, and as always, subscribe to The Art of Photography so you'll always be up to date on all the latest and greatest things that we do here. Until the next video. I'll see you guys then. Later.